Hello and welcome to the Living Hopecast. I'm your host and I am so glad you're joining us.
We are about to do a deep dive into a really rich and challenging message.
And honestly, a pretty funny one too. It's titled Masterclasses.
It is. It's a great title. And it really does act as a sort of advanced course in emotional and spiritual maturity.
Yeah.
Just to set the context for everyone, this was presented by Jeremy Payton on Sunday, January 18th, 2026 at Living Hope Community Church.
And I have to say, right off the bat, we're going to do our best here, but this message had some visuals that, well, audio just doesn't do them justice. Specifically, there's a part with botched taxidermy that had me actually laughing out loud.
It's definitely a see it to believe it kind of thing.
Exactly. So consider this your official heads up. There is a full video of this message linked right in the description for this deep dive. You can find it on the Living Hope webpage, YouTube, Facebook, the church app, all of it. So if you want the full experience, especially the visuals, you should go check that out.
For sure. But for now, let's unpack the ideas, because there is a lot here.
Let's do it. So Jeremy kicks this off with a story that I think anyone over 30 is going to feel this in their bones.
Oh, yeah.
He's talking about kickboxing with his 17-year-old son, Asher. And Jeremy's been doing this for a long time, but, Asher is hitting that prime athletic window.
The classic changing of the guard.
Right. So they're sparring, full pads, going hard. And Jeremy, trying to be the wise veteran, he decides to use a front kick to keep Asher at range.
Keep the young guy away.
And as he throws the kicksing...
Ugh, that sound, that specific sharp pain that just tells you something went wrong.
He calls it an old guy injury. A zingalizing of pain right down the leg. But here's the thing, and this is where the whole setup begins. He didn't go to the doctor right away.
No.
He did what a lot of us do. He ignored it. He spent a full year with limited function. He couldn't sprint, couldn't spar, zero flexibility.
And that delay is so crucial to the analogy. Because he does eventually go see Dr. Andrea Goff, a chiropractor. And when she examines him, she introduces this concept that just anchors the whole discussion. Compensation.
I found this part fascinating because you usually think of the body just breaking down, but he describes it almost like the body's trying to be helpful, but in like a misguided way.
That's exactly it. When you have an injury, your body is incredibly adaptive. It doesn't just stop. It finds a workaround.
Right.
It'll shift your weight to the other hip, shorten your stride, it changes your posture. It creates a new normal just to keep you going without pain.
But that new normal is actually dysfunction.
Totally.
You're basically cementing a limp into your lifestyle.
Right. It feels normal because you're used to it, but it's not how the body was designed to operate. And this leads to the painful part.
Yeah.
Jeremy explains that when Dr. Goff starts putting things back into alignment, back to the factory settings, you could say, it does not feel like a spa day.
No, he said it hurts. He felt sore and tender afterward, even though he hadn't worked out.
Because the body is resisting. It has to unlearn the compensation patterns it spent a whole year building. Realignment means breaking those old habits, and the muscles kind of revolt.
And this is the pivot. He takes this physical reality that getting fixed actually hurts at first, and he maps it directly onto emotional maturity. He suggests that when we start trying to grow, when we start using these tools for emotional health, we often feel worse initially.
Which is such a validating thing to hear.
Yeah.
I think we assume that if you're practicing emotional health, you should instantly feel zen and peaceful.
Right.
But Jeremy's arguing that if you are resetting a joint that's been out of whack for 20 years, you're going to be sore. You might feel awkward or clunky or even more irritable because you're forcing yourself out of your comfortable dysfunction.
And to really drive home how out of whack we can be, he used those slides I mentioned, the botched taxidermy.
The visual of that cross-eyed fox is hard to forget.
It really is. He asked the congregation, which botched taxidermy are you today? And it's funny, but it's actually a brilliant way to get people to drop their guard.
Totally.
If you ask someone, are you emotionally regulated? They'll just lie and say yes. But if you ask, do you feel like this twisted up bobcat? They might actually tell you the truth.
It creates a safe language for it.
Mm-hmm.
And Jeremy models that vulnerability right away. He didn't stand up there as the master teaching the class. He stood up as a fellow student.
Yeah, he shared that story about getting whacked, that was his word, by a conversation with his wife, Anna, earlier in the week.
And he used a clip from The Incredibles to describe his mood.
I'm not happy, Bob. Not happy.
It paints a very clear picture. He was drained, defensive, and by his own admission, not very fun to be around.
But here is where the masterclass insight really starts to shine. He was embarrassed that it took him a couple of days to snap out of it. He felt like he failed.
But Anna, his wife, she completely reframed it for him.
This is the key metric shift.
It is. We tend to think emotional success means prevention, like never getting angry, never getting triggered. But Anna told him, and she even approved this message in a video clip, the win wasn't that he didn't get upset.
No.
The win was his recovery time.
You recovered in days instead of weeks?
That changes the whole game. It takes the pressure off being perfect. The goal isn't to be a robot who never feels negative emotion. The goal is to notice when you're limping emotionally and get back into alignment faster than you did last time.
I love that. It makes growth feel so much more achievable. You're just trying to shorten the gap between the star analyzing and the alignment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now that he's established that we are all apprentices here, Jeremy transitions to the core of the message. He says, look, if we want to learn how to do this really well, we have to look at the mastery.
We have to look at Jesus. And he pulls out 3 specific traits he calls the masterclass traits that Jesus demonstrated under extreme pressure. Let's look at trait number 1, staying relational under pressure.
The context Jeremy sets here is just vital. He takes us to the upper room, John chapter 13, the Last Supper.
And he does a great job of stripping away the stained glass vibe. He describes the reality. It's a small room, probably really hot, crowded with guys who've been walking on dusty roads. It smells like roasted lamb and unwashed bodies. And the tension is absolutely suffocating.
It's a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
You have the disciples arguing about who is the greatest.
Yeah.
Just pure ego. And then sitting right there at the table, you have Judas.
Yeah.
And the text implies Jesus knows exactly what Judas is about to do. The betrayal isn't a surprise. It's already in motion.
I mean, put yourself in that room. If I'm sitting next to a guy who I know is selling me out and my other friends are just arguing about how great they are, I am checking out. I am putting up a wall.
Oh, you're fighting. You go into self-protection mode.
Until you're at
You
rest.
keep the range, right? To use the kickboxing metaphor.
Yep.
But Jesus does the unthinkable. He doesn't fight, and he doesn't flee. He gets up, takes off his outer garment, grabs a towel, and washes their feet. He moves toward the stress.
That just feels impossible for a normal person. So how do you stay relational when the room is that hostile? Jeremy unpacks a specific verse, John 13.3, that seems to hold the answer.
It's a really, it's a dense theological statement. It says Jesus knew that the Father had given all things into his hands and that he had come from God and was going back to God.
Okay.
And Jeremy draws this sharp distinction here between where you come from and who you come from.
Break that down, because usually remembering where you came from means your hometown.
Right. For Jesus, that's Nazareth.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, Nazareth had a bad reputation. Can anything good come from Nazareth?
Right.
If Jesus relied on his geographic identity, he might feel insecure. But Jeremy points out that Jesus rarely called himself Jesus of Nazareth. He called himself over 80 times the Son of Man.
And that's not just a poetic way of saying I'm human, is it?
No, it is a power move. Yeah. It refers to Daniel chapter 7. The Son of Man is this cosmic figure who approaches the Ancient of Days and is given everlasting dominion and glory and a kingdom that will not be destroyed.
So connect the dots for me. How does believing you are the cosmic king help you wash dirty feet?
It creates ultimate security. If you know you have all authority, if your identity is completely settled in the Father, you don't need to posture in the room. You don't need Judas to be loyal for you to be okay. You don't need the disciples to validate you. Because Jesus was secure in who he came from, he could afford to serve. He could lower himself because his status wasn't up for negotiation.
Wow. Insecurity makes us defensive. True security makes us relational.
Precisely. If I know who I am, I can handle your mess without it destroying my peace.
Which leads us perfectly into trait number 2. Jeremy calls this consistency of self.
Or basically being the same person no matter what room you're in. He used this collage concept, showing 3 snapshots of Jesus in 3 radically different social environments.
I loved this breakdown. So snapshot 1, John chapter 6. He feeds the 5,000. The crowd goes wild. They want to grab him and make him king. This is peak popularity.
Snapshot 2, Luke chapter 4. He preaches in his hometown of Nazareth. They hate it. They are filled with rage and try to throw him off a cliff. Yeah. Peak rejection.
And snapshot 3, John 2. The wedding at Cana. His mom comes to him and says, "They have no wine." This is familial pressure, social expectation. Fix the party, Jesus.
3 pressures. Crown him, kill him, and mom needs a favor. And Jeremy's insight is that Jesus is exactly the same in all three scenarios.
He doesn't let the praise puff him up. He withdraws. He doesn't let the mob rattle him. He just walks right through them. He doesn't even let his own mom dictate his schedule.
No, he says, "My hour has not yet come." That phrase is the thread. It shows Jesus was operating on an internal timeline, not an external one. He wasn't a chameleon. He didn't change his colors to match the room. He was consistent because, again, he was looking to the Father, not the crowd.
It's the opposite of being a people pleaser.
It is. It creates stability. You know who you're getting with Jesus.
Okay, so this brings us to trait number 3. And I'll be honest, this one hit me the hardest. Returning to joy.
This one is incredibly tender, especially with the context Jeremy highlighted. He points us to Matthew 14, the death of John the Baptist.
Jesus' cousin, his friend, the guy who baptized him.
Beheaded in a prison because of a petty grudge. It's just senseless and horrific. And the text says, when Jesus heard the news, he withdrew by boat to a solitary place. He wanted to be alone. He was grieving.
Which, I think we all get that. If your best friend is murdered, you want to disappear. But the world didn't let him. The crowds ran around the lake and met him on the shore.
Now, if I'm grieving and thousands of people show up demanding things, I am snapping. I'm yelling, "Leave me alone."
And no one would blame you. You'd be justified. But the text says Jesus looked at them and had compassion, and then he performs the miracle of the loaves and fishes.
Jeremy calls this returning to joy. But he made a really important clarification. This is not toxic positivity.
Right, he's not faking a smile.
No, absolutely not. He still withdraws to pray later. But the masterclass trait here is capacity. It's the ability to hold deep grief and deep compassion at the same time. Most of us, when we get hurt, we just collapse inward. We become useless to the people around us because our pain consumes our entire field of vision.
He said we stop acting like ourselves and start acting like a wounded child.
Right. But Jesus demonstrated the ability to not get stuck in the negativity.
Yeah.
He could return to a place of being generative, of being a source of life, even while carrying a heavy sorrow. That is a massive sign of emotional maturity.
It's the ability to say, I am hurting, but I am still me and I can still see you.
Exactly.
So we have these 3 traits: staying relational, consistency of self, and returning to joy. And if I'm listening, I'm probably thinking, okay, beautiful, but that is Jesus. He's God. I'm just me. How am I supposed to do that?
Yeah, and Jeremy anticipates that objection. He asks, how can regular people do God-level things?
And thank goodness the answer wasn't just try harder.
No. If the answer was try harder, we'd all just quit. The answer Jeremy offers is supernatural. He quotes Romans 8:11. If the spirit of him who raised Jesus from the dead is living in you.
That's a resource.
It's an access issue. Jeremy argues that we simply do not have the biological or psychological resources to wash the feet of our enemies. That's not natural. It is supernatural behavior.
Right.
We need an external power source, the Holy Spirit, to override our natural compensation patterns. We need the Spirit to help us realign.
But he doesn't leave it just in the mystical realm. He brings it down to earth with Ephesians 4. We need the Spirit, yes, but we also need other people.
The body. We can't self-correct in isolation. Jeremy emphasizes that we grow up into the stature of Christ by speaking the truth and love to one another.
Which goes right back to the taxidermy. I need someone to look at me and say, hey, you're acting like a cross-eyed fox right now.
Exactly. We need community to point out our limps. A sermon can give you information, but relationships give you the friction that actually polishes you. That's how the realignment happens.
Speaking of realignment, I really loved the closing image he left us with about how God feels about this process.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of us feel like God is just annoyed by our immaturity. Like, he's up there rolling his eyes saying, really, we're dealing with this again.
Jeremy used the dad analogy. He said, I get stoked when my kid asks me to help him learn to budget.
Which is such a dad thing to say.
It is, but the logic holds. A loving father isn't annoyed when his child wants to learn how to be an adult. He's thrilled. He wants to help. And Jeremy's point is that God is even more excited to help us imitate Jesus than a dad is to teach financial literacy.
That reframes your whole prayer life. It's not groveling in shame. It's asking for coaching. Dad, show me how to do this. Show me how to stay relational.
And knowing that he is delighted to answer that prayer, that changes everything. It invites partnership. It goes back to that Anna Payton-approved recovery time. God is in the business of realigning us, and he's patient with the process.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the takeaway for the listener today?
I think it's a challenge to check your alignment. Where are you compensating? Where have you built a new normal around a hurt or an insecurity? And are you willing to let the spirit and your community do the painful work of putting it back in place.
And to remember that the soreness you feel when you try to be relational, that's not failure. That's growing pains. That's the feeling of returning to the design.
Perfectly put.
Well, this has been a fantastic look at Jeremy Payton's message masterclasses. Again, I cannot stress this enough. Go watch the video. You need to see the botched taxidermy slides to really get the full effect. And seeing the scripture breakdowns on screen is super helpful.
It's definitely worth your time.
You can find it on the Living Hope app, their website, YouTube, and Facebook. And as you go about your week, maybe ask yourself, which snapshot am I living in right now? Crown him, kill him, or fix it? And can I stay consistent through it?
A great question to ponder.
Thanks for joining us on the Living Hope Cast. We'll catch you in the next deep dive.
See you then.